But guys, I'm at the shop. I just gotta clean some things up. And guys, we're actually starting to do heat maintenances. I just got off the phone with a customer. I think we gotta come out here next week. This customer has a steam boiler. But guys, let's talk about it. There's a few things I wanted to go over. I'm gonna get to the topic in a few minutes. The topic is recalls. But in another note, guys, you guys know how I feel about fitness. You guys do have some type of regimen for fitness. Like I said, guys, the best investment that I made so far this year, hands down, is I got a treadmill at home. And guys, like, I think the treadmill is like what? It costed a pretty penny. I think it was like $450. It was at least $400. But guys, look, my regimen is pretty black and white. Like I said, I do an hour of cardio in the morning, and of course I work, so like that adds up to at least 10,000 steps. And on top of that, guys, I do another hour of cardio 4 days a week at the gym. But guys, look, I mean, you can either, like I said, hopefully you guys got some motivation to do it. But like I said, the fact that, you know, there's a chance that you can put yourself in the hospital due to like not taking care of yourself, like that's not a life someone chooses to partake in. So like I said, guys, whatever you do, you know, make sure you guys are, you know, taking care of yourselves. Because guys, right now it's a night and day difference. You know, like I can tell you right now, guys, from my standpoint, last year, because I just started going to the gym really 2 years ago, but I wasn't really counting calories or anything like that until like this year. And guys, like, I mean, last year, even with going to the gym, like I had joint pains. Of course, guys, like doing what we do, you know, you're in the truck at least 4 or 5 hours a day, you know, depends on your route. And, you know, your body's bending in attics and crawl spaces and things like that. So guys, like, there's a lot of things that could happen to your body, like doing HVAC, that you won't know about until it's too late. But guys, like, you know, whatever you could do, like at the gym, you know, whether it be cardio, whether it be, you know, calisthenics, whether it be whatever, you know, strength training, guys, whatever you do in the gym, it's automatically going to help you out, you know, in your personal life as far as with your body. Because like, guys, the aches and pains I had, you know, I'm not big on medication or anything like that. But guys, like the aches I had, you know, I feel like I had to deal with it. But, you know, moving forward, I knew that, like I said, those aches and pains never went away. And I'm like, you know what? You know, the older you get, and this is real life facts, guys, the older you get, your body's going to hurt regardless of what you do. You know, why not go to the gym? And like I said, you know, the pain from the gym, it feels better than the pain from, you know, not doing anything. And like I said, guys, having back problems and leg problems. So, like I said, guys, you don't have to be a gym rat, but like I said, whatever you do, you know, just stay consistent at it, and, you know, long term is going to pay off. But guys, let's get into the topic. I'm going to give y'all a few minutes to jump up in this live. Let's talk about the topic. Let's talk about recalls, guys. Some people hate them. Some people love them. Guys, when I first started out doing service calls, recalls were something I didn't really like because, like I said, guys, you know, I made a lot of mistakes starting off in service because I didn't know how to fix anything. You know, I did maintenances, you know, things of that nature. But when things break, typically, you know, they tell us to call like a senior tech or call a demand tech. And, you know, and they'll come back. So I really didn't see service until I got like at least 6 months in with maintenance. That's when they trusted me enough to do service calls. But guys, like I said, recalls, I think I made a few videos about this already. Recalls are part of the game. You know, there's always something to learn, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing. There's always something that you can learn from every service call, you know, let alone recall. But guys, recalls, especially if you're going on your own recalls, I don't know, like I said, you know, whatever you guys do, where you work at, I don't know if they have you guys, you know, run your own recalls or what, you know, or what the case is. But if you guys are out there running recalls, you know, try your best to not take it personal, you know, whether it be, you know, an angry customer, whether it be, you know, or if you had beef with your coworkers or whoever came out. Guys, you know, the last thing you can do, or the last thing you want to do is, like I said, make matters worse by downing someone that, you know, like I said, guys, you 9 times out of 10, you're going to work for the same company. Like whoever came out there from your company, I think it's going to look crazy if you go out on a recall and say, yeah, well, this last guy didn't know what the hell he was doing. The customer doesn't care. It's from the same company. So like, it kind of looks stupid. And like I said, guys, you know, whatever your personal opinions is in regards to who came out last, you kind of like want to keep that to yourself. You know, we call that truck talk, guys. Like how we talk with each other, it's not how we talk in the customer's house. Because like I said, for one, it's definitely unprofessional. And, you know, even if the customer's cool, Like, you don't want to, give them the idea of, like I said, you're just bad mouthing and you're just, doing all that, guys. You just want to keep it professional. But in regards to these recalls, you definitely want to just not take it personal. And the biggest thing you want to do, the goal of recalls, guys, is to rectify the situation. What that means is, like I said, I can give you a million and one scenarios. Let's say if this is, you got, like, let's say if you were, you're in the same situation as me at that time. Let's say if you guys were a maintenance tech, and I'm gonna get to looking at the comments in a second. Let me get through these points here. Let's say if you guys were a maintenance tech and you went on a heat maintenance on a steam boiler, and let's say if you turned the gas off for some reason, you turned the gas knob off and you forgot to turn it on. Maybe you're Russian, whatever the case is, and the customer called your boss back a couple hours later and said, hey, my heat stopped working after such and such came out, and your boss sends another one of your coworkers out, and the coworker's like, hey, like, the gas is turned off, and your boss calls you like, hey, like, how come the gas is turned off? And, like, instantly you're like, oh crap, that's my bad. Guys, like, something like that, and I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I had stupid recalls on me, and I went to stupid recalls with other people. And, like, I'm the type of guy, if I go on a recall from somebody, I work with, or in this case, guys, like one of my employees, I'll call them and I'll say, hey, by the way, I went out on such and such recall. I just found a loose wire here, and I'll send them a picture of what I'm talking about. But guys, I look at that like a learning experience. I don't try to bash people, because what are you really getting out of bashing people on recalls? Especially, like I said, I'm not talking from another company. I'm talking from one of your coworkers. Everybody make mistakes. Like, shit happens. Like I said, I can only assume what goes through someone's mind in the course of 24 hours. Like, shit happens. Like I said, you always want to take your time. I don't know, once again, this is per company. I don't know how your policies are. Some companies can do 12 maintenances a day, while some companies probably only do 1 or 2. I don't know what your speed is. I don't know your procedures, but I always tell, like I said, my guys, whoever I'm training, take your time and make sure, like I said, everything's running. You got your tools put up. Do not rush. Do not think about the next call. Don't think about the last call. Always try to stay present when you guys are out here doing these maintenances, because, like, if everybody has their routine. I'm not dissing your routine, but like I said, if you get to the point where you're like in and out, eventually you're going to lose something, or you're going to mess something up. And like I said, guys, like, that can be that one job that's like an hour and a half away, and now you're going to feel kind of crazy going back there because you left your jumpers on R&W on the circuit board. That happened to me before. Like, that's why, even if you feel like you're flowing, you feel like everything's working, always go back anyway. Even before you wrap things up with the customer, go back to the equipment and make sure everything's working, and you're not going to have these problems. But like I said, guys, recalls are a learning lesson. I used to have a negative mindset towards recalls until I got more experience with them. I'm talking when I was a maintenance tech. When I had recalls, I always thought I was going to get yelled at. I'm like, shit, what did I do wrong then? What did I do wrong now? And then, like I said, guys, like, it's eventually all this shit is like all the same. It doesn't really change. The only thing that changes is, the location of where you're working at. But, you always try to keep a positive mind, regardless of, who you work with or who you work for. Always use everything as a learning lesson. And like I said, guys, like, even if, you have a stupid recall in which you left your jumper somewhere, or if you forgot to plug something back in, charge it to the game. For one, make it right with the customer, and like I said, guys, the customer most of the time is not going to really mind, as long as it comes out to rectify the situation. They're not going to really give you shit about it. But, down the line, like I say, you kind of, like, those mistakes could cost you. So, like, that's why everything you go through, you try to learn from it and you try to get better. But, I'm not insinuating you guys make the same mistake each and every time, like, intentionally. No, you just take your time and you learn from it. So, these are a bunch of bots. Say my name for what? No, yep, you know it. So yeah, guys, like, in regards to recalls, like I said, I got a bunch of crazy recalls I've been on. I'm talking, like, when I was a maintenance tech, even when I did installs, it was a bunch of recalls. Like, I'm trying to think of a few. And I mean, the most recent ones are, of course, I put online now. So like I said, guys, I show you everything. I show you, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's all part of the game. But I mean, most recalls we go on now are just kind of like, ABCs. It's not really much to it. And guys, another thing I left out when you're doing recalls, I'm not talking now, like, the example I gave a few minutes ago, as far as, like, you leaving things unplugged. I mean, that's simple things. The second level of recalls, guys, requires you to take your time and, like I said, use some competence. The second level of recalls is crossing your T's and dotting your I's, guys. What that means is, let's say, prime example, guys. I'm gonna put this up on the vlog next week, guys. I gotta go to do a heat maintenance on a steam boiler. Let's say with that particular customer, I already been here last year, but with this particular customer, let's say if you guys go out here on a heat maintenance for a steam boiler, and let's say, okay, you go out to do a heat maintenance on a steam boiler, and I don't know once again, this is just hypothetically, let's say if you go out to do a heat maintenance and you forgot to check the sight glass, and the sight glass is very murky, it's like, and for you guys that work on steam boilers, you know what I'm talking about. If the sight glass level is, if the water is murky in the sight glass, you can easily, hopefully you're flushing the boiler, you can easily valve it off, take the sight glass out, clean it, and put it back in. But let's say if you didn't do that, for some reason, maybe you're rushing, maybe it's already 6 o'clock at night and you've been working, yada, whatever the case is. Let's say if you didn't check the sight glass and the water is real murky, and now guess what? As soon as you did the heat maintenance, hypothetically, you got there, you checked the pipes, the supply is hot, you went upstairs, make sure the radiators are hot, and at that point, you just cleaned the burners and you left without looking at the sight glass level. Guess what happened? Without you looking at the water levels, all that murky stuff that was in the sight glass now got clogged up in the pigtail. And you guys, once again, if you work on steam boilers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. With those pigtails, if they clog up, then pressure control opens, and now that boiler is not going to fire up. But if you would have did the maintenance properly and cleaned the sight glass and cleaned the pigtail, you could have avoided that from happening, but you didn't. Now, guess what? The customer is going to call your boss or call your manager and say, hey, you know, Andrew just came out here for the heat maintenance, and he said it was working, but an hour after he left, I can't get the boiler to start. Now everything is cold. Once again, if you guys go on your own recalls, you know, that's great, but sometimes you don't have the luxury to do it. Maybe you're in another area. Now your coworker comes out and he's like, hey, he calls you out of courtesy. Hopefully, if you guys, you know, if he's trying to help you, he'll call you like, hey, Drew, like, hey, you came out to such and such house. Like I came out here and the customer said that yada yada, it was working, and then it turned off after you left. Hey man, I got out here. Just by the way, the pigtail was clogged up. Did you clean it? And of course, if you're honest, you're going to say you didn't do it. Maybe, you know, you're rushing, or maybe you thought you didn't have to. But gosh, like those type of calls are very unexcusable. Like I said, you know, that's where, like I said, if you get experience, there are certain things that, you know, that just shouldn't happen. You know, I'm not saying, you know, what can happen will happen sometimes, but like I said, guys, like that's the point of experience. It's like I said, you already seen bad things happen, you already seen good things happen enough, once again, so you can use it to your advantage to avoid bullshit from happening. But like a call like that, you know, similar to a furnace, you know, if you go to a heat maintenance on a gas furnace and you didn't clean the flame sensor, and maybe for some reason it was one of those trained 90% for gas furnaces where you have to take the box out and it's hard to get to. But the point is, you got to do it. Otherwise, if you don't do it, that unit might not work when you leave, and now the company is going to spend more money sending someone else out to do what they already paid you to do. So guys, like, from a company standpoint, it's definitely not a good look. But, you know, like I said, depends on who you work for. If they're trying to help you grow, you know, they'll teach you what to do and what not to do. But like I said, guys, if, you know, from my standpoint, guys, like as an employer, like if I got a guy that's doing a bunch of recalls, you know, for one, you know, that's an opportunity for him or her to learn from it. I don't necessarily try to try to throw people to the wolves and like expect them to understand every mistake, but I'll say, hey, okay, well, you did 5 recalls last week, and coincidentally, they were all flame sensors. Okay, like, what can we do to like rectify this? Like, do you need help trying to figure out what a flame sensor is? Do you have the proper tools to get to the flame sensor and clean it? Like, cause like eventually, guys, that's like you paying 2 people for the same job. Like if I'm paying you at 8 a.m. to go do a maintenance, and then at 2 p.m. the customer calls back and says it's not working, I got to send another guy out. Like long term, that's not sustainable. But like I said, guys, like, but before it even gets to the point of like, you know, becoming a big issue, I always just bring it up to them like, hey, like, oh, this is how it should be, guys. I can only tell you how I do it, but like, I like opportunities to teach people, you know, to learn, you know, to avoid bigger issues down the line. But like I said, you know, either I make a video, if I go back on a recall, I'll make a video and I'll explain to them exactly what I did to fix the issue. But like I said, guys, like, you know, when my mentality on recalls now, and they're very far and few in between, you know, because for one, I take my time and I cross my T's and dot my I's. If I see something that could cause an issue down the line, that's part of your job as a service tech is to make sure that, like I said, you guys are out there communicating with customers, and that's the back half of recalls. Like, I'm talking before it even gets to a recall, but the back half of this is, let's say, if you guys are on the maintenance and you see a part that's like past a certain range, whether it be a hot service igniter, whether it be a capacitor, that's your job to communicate to the customer what can happen. Because once again, guys, I forgot what law that is. What the law states that whatever can happen will happen. And like I said, guys, in the field that we're in, we deal with heaters and AC units all the time. Any piece of equipment that has electricity flowing through it, and like I said, dirt and pollen, whatever the case is, inside or outside, guys, things break down all the time, and we can't always control when and how it breaks down. But if a customer pays you to go out and do a maintenance, I'll be damned if I go out to a customer's house and I don't thoroughly explain to him or her, like, hey, ma'am or sir, here's, once again, the purpose of the maintenance is to avoid breakdowns, but here's what XYZ is, here's how XYZ is supposed to work, here's what I'm seeing, and here's what can happen if we don't fix this problem, if we don't replace it, if we don't clean it, if we don't. And guys, like I said, this is all free information. The customer's not paying for, this is all education, because once again, if the customer knew how to do this, they wouldn't call you to begin with. So you have to know that there's a need for your service to begin with. But like I said, guys, like, this is all ABCs. Like, the videos I put online is the same thing I tell the customers. I mean, most of the calls I go on are existing customers, so I don't necessarily have to explain everything every single time like I would with a brand new customer. But for the most part, guys, if you're out doing these maintenances, you want to make sure that, like I said, you're covering your ass, because like I said, I can guarantee, guys, this is happening each and every day. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you guys too often before you understand what to do. But if you guys are out here doing maintenances, right now we're doing it's heating maintenance season. So like, it's right now you're going to start to see a lot of boilers, a lot of furnaces. If you guys are trying to fly by these maintenances too quick just to get home before 3 o'clock, I can guarantee one of those units, guys, it might be one that's it might be a furnace with a flame sensor that's hard to get to, or it might be a steam boiler with a murky sight glass that's like real caked up. It looks like it's mud in the sight glass. If you don't take those extra 10 to 15 minutes to slow yourself down and say, you know what, I know it's gonna suck, but you know what, I don't want this to turn into a recall. Let me just get my stubby 1/4-inch nut driver out the truck, and let me clean the flame sensor, or let me get my boiler hose and let me flush this boiler down, and let me take this pigtail out, and let me clean the sight glass. Because guys, if you don't do it, it's a big chance that something could happen, like I said, and you're going to get blamed for it. So like, eventually, guys, it's going to happen to you. You're going to have to learn how to deal with recalls. But like, eventually, guys, it's going to be way easier to prevent a problem than keep fixing problems, guys. And this has something to do with business. This is just ABCs, guys. Like, you want to prevent things from happening. You don't want to necessarily just keep taking chances, and then now, guys, instead of you making money seeing new customers every day, now you're going back to all your recalls, and like, that's not sustainable long term, unless you don't really care about what you do, So guys, like I said, recalls now is just, I charge it to the game, but now, like I said, hopefully you guys are, or if you're not already, if you don't have experience with doing HVAC and service, like, eventually, you guys, I hope you get to that level of, if I do a recall, I automatically know in the back of my mind it's probably gonna be something stupid, because I know if I came out, or if one of my other guys came out, I know, like I said, they're trained to like take their time, and they're trained to cover their ass. So I already know if I go out, most likely it's probably either a miscommunication, either the customer didn't know how to turn something off and on, or maybe it's something stupid. Maybe the customer got something else done and they accidentally unplugged the condensate pump, and the condensate pump had the safeties, and like I said, the AC turned off or the heat turned off. So like, it's not really much to it, besides, like I said, just covering your ass. But if I go out on the recall, I'm going out there with an open mind. I'm not going out there thinking like, man, this other guy, like, nah, guys, like, that's bullshit. And I know it's people out there like that, they're probably waiting for something to happen for them to blame you. I've seen that before. But like I said, guys, hopefully you guys aren't in a bad situation in which you're walking on eggshells each and every day. Like, nah, guys, like, once again, I hope you got the right mentality. You're trying to do your best each and every job you go on. But guys, like, you never want to take it too personal, whether if you're going on your own recall or if you're going on other people's recalls, like I said, because no one's perfect, guys. Like, it is what it is. I have nothing to really prove as far as me trying to tell, imagine me trying to tell everybody else, yeah, I'm the best tech. I'm trying, like, nah, because like, shit can happen. Anything can happen. I'm talking in a good way or a bad way. So like, it's not really, you got to kind of like lose the ego a little bit past a certain point. It's not really, the shit we do, that's all I was telling you guys. I try to explain things as simple as I can, but like I said, guys, like, I don't that perfection thing doesn't exist unless someone's trying to sell you something. You know, that's the that's the nature of the beast, guys. But guys, I gotta get to a barbershop appointment. I had to put what is this? Yeah, I got the inspection done. But I had to get the registration for this van and that van. Let me make sure I got everything. But yeah, guys, like I said, you know, I'll make more GMC talks because, like I said, guys, I like these topics that I go over. And like, guys, most of this shit I forgot. But like I said, once it comes back to me, I'll just put them on the GMC talks. But like I said, guys, like with recalls, you know, hold on, let me close this up here. But with recalls, like I said, guys, it's just don't be afraid of, like I said, you know. And like I said, I can tell you what went through my mind starting off in service, and that's kind of like the best thing I can do to try to relay, you know, how I make the transition over from like really being too scared to make a mistake to crossing over saying, you know what, fuck it. Like, if I try to clean this flame sensor and it breaks, then like I said, you know, I'll call the boss or the manager and I'm going to tell them what I tried to do and it didn't work. But like, in a way, guys, like you really got to be confident in your abilities. I'm talking like service. I don't know, you know, install sales, like it's all relative, but like I'm talking specifically with service. I see guys, like I said, out of trade school. I don't know how, once again, I don't know their personality. I don't know, you know, what level of experience they have as far as with seeing this, but like, if someone's too afraid to make a mistake, it's going to show in either how they communicate with customers or with them trying to fix things. Like, they're going to be really too fidgety, being too scared. Like, eventually I tell them, like, yo, like, and like I said, guys, I explain things, once again, really simple, and I give my guys that I train the leeway to fuck up, because we train a lot. We don't really train in customers' houses. Like, when you're in front of a customer, you know, that's when the game, that's the ball game, that's when it starts. But like, we do a lot of training, and I specifically put them in situations in which it's not something that you can read up on. I put them in, you know, maybe a situation like, and we do role playing too. I put them in situations in which a customer is pissed off and now they have to rectify the situation. I put them in situations in which now it's not a call that you're just going to breeze through. Now you got to think your way through it, and you just can't, you know, like I said, guys, that's how I like to train, because like the more realistic our training is, once, you know, one of my guys, and this is not with me, once one of my guys get on their own in front of a customer, instantly before they start tripping and think, oh shit, what's going on? They may think, wait, we was already training about this. All right, let me just focus on what I already know and let's see what happens. And most of the time, guys, what they already know is what they should be doing. So like, now they have a point of, you know what, reference. Like, you know what, I already know how to do heat maintenance. I already know how to handle customers' objections. I already know X, Y, Z. And like I said, guys, that's the beauty of training. And of course, training the right way, you know. Hey, Frank Evans, what's up? What's going on? Yeah, man. Like I said, guys, like, I mean, most of this shit, man, is just, it wasn't explained to me when I first started doing service. It wasn't explained to me in black and white, guys. It was a bunch. And like I said, this is no disrespect. You never heard me talk bad about anyone I work with or anybody I work for. But there was a bunch of other shit that had probably nothing to do with what I was learning that I had to try to circumvent and figure out before I got to what really mattered, guys. And like, and you know, and like I said, guys, part of me seeing, like I said, and I got very grateful, guys, to see good companies, mid companies, great companies, and like everything in between. How a company operates, guys, is how they operate. I don't take shit personal, because you don't know what the owner had to go through to get to where he or she got to. So like I said, guys, you don't take shit personal, but like, you learn from each and every thing that you go through, and like I say, you try to get better. But like, guys, like, you know, when I first started off, like, you know, I said this multiple times, guys, when I first started off, I was just asking a shitload full of questions. But like I said, guys, like, if someone either felt intimidated or maybe they don't want me to know more than them, they'll just say, you know what, nah, man, you don't need to know about inducer motors. Nah, you don't need to know about blow motors. That's all. And like, I'm me being a rookie or me not knowing anything, I'm like, all right, I guess I don't need to know it. But like, in the back of my mind, guys, like the fucking textbooks that they gave us in school, I read that shit like a Bible. So I already knew what it was, but I was like, in a way I was thinking like, okay, I'm seeing everything I went to school for now. Like, what is it? How does it work? You know, if it broke down, how will we diagnose it? And guys, like, that was just my mentality. But like, you know, as someone on the other side, you know, if they don't want to see other people, like I said, learn shit, they might try to talk you out of it. Like, nah, they might give you an excuse like, nah, you don't need to know that. Well, tell you what, nah, you're not. We don't really work on boilers. You don't need to know how thermocouples work. guys, I heard it all, but like I said, I never took it personal. I'm like, you know what? Either I'm gonna learn it from A, or I'm gonna learn from B, or if A and B, I can't learn from them, I'm gonna learn from C. And like, gosh, that's no slight. Like I said, there's no disrespect towards whoever I was with. But like I said, guys, if someone wants to learn something, and like I said, let's say if that person was with me, you know, let's say if I jumped in a time machine and I pulled myself from the past when I was 19. If I got somebody next to me that I'm training and he wants to know something, fuck it. Like, and I already know in the back of my mind, the more he knows, the more he's gonna help the company. So like, what would I look like telling a entry-level person or a helper that, yeah, you don't need to know that. I'm gonna teach you more as much as you want to know. But like I said, guys, where it gets problematic is like you can't force someone to learn something that they're not trying to learn. You get what I'm saying? No one ever had to kind of like put a gun in my head and make me learn this shit. This is what I love to do. You feel what I'm saying? So like, but you can't manufacture a desire for someone to want to know something, you know, like that's the thing. That desire has to come from like a place of negativity. I already knew I had to pay back student loans. I already knew I didn't have really nothing else to fall back on if this shit didn't work, guys. Like that type of desire, that doesn't come from good things happening. But like everybody has a point of like something that they don't want to do, or something that, like I said, a place that they want to get to. It's different for everybody. But like I said, guys, like you just can't drop a bunch of success on something without that success coming with a price, guys. Because like I already knew, like I said in my intro video, guys, I already knew, like I said, this shit didn't work. I don't even know what the fuck I would be doing. But like, it's just, you know, instead of me being intimidated and scared about things not working out, I'm just like, you know what? I got an opportunity to learn, you know, learn about gas valves and learn about the shit they're saying in school. But I'm like, you know what? Instead of me blaming instructors for not having equipment in the lab, I'm gonna take my ass to the supply house and I'm gonna try my best to like try to remember, for one, what they told me in school, and I'm gonna try my best to see it. If I can see it, maybe I can play with the fucking on and off switch on the gas valve, or if I can see an evac coil, know where the drain ports are on the evac coil, know where the liquid line is. Guys, like that's what I did to kind of like keep myself motivated to like stay in this shit. Cause like if I would have just waited around, guys, I'm telling you, and I once again, I don't talk personal. Like I said, guys, like I always tell guys, like, look, you know, if you wait around, like you're gonna be victim to whatever the fuck happens, and that's probably not gonna be a good thing. So it's just like, you know, like I said, guys, it's just, you know, HVAC is not for everybody, but like I said, guys, like the principles are the same. You know, whether you do HVAC, whether you do trucking, whether you do roofing, or whatever the case is, guys, it's just, you know, there's a sacrifice that comes into it. But you know, I really think the goal aspect, instead of you focusing on the goals, like everything you need to know, like the values and principles, all that shit is like going to be in the process of getting to that goal. You know, the only thing I wanted to do was learn as much as I can about HVAC, and like I said, where I ended up is where I ended up. But guys, the process of me learning all this shit, like, look, like this shit just took me, you know, past financial, like said, security. Now I'm actually having fun. Like I said, guys, I use the analogy all the time. I'm just playing with Legos, guys. Like I can't force my ideals on everybody, but like I said, guys, I knew how I felt and I knew what was going on when I first started. You know, no one didn't take me by the hand and say, hey, here's what you do, here's what you shouldn't do. Nah, guys, I just like, I for one, like, you know, I cut the distractions off. I focused on what I needed to learn. And like I said, guys, like once you get that ability of, like I said, focusing in the world full of distractions and like bullshit that you have to go through, I mean, look, man, once you lock down and focus on one thing, you know, don't count the time, just keep working at it until, like I said, guys, doors open up. You know, like I told you, it took me like 6 months to find that HVAC job, you know, and like I said, I'm in the books every day. Like I didn't, not like that. I think I put that on my intro video, guys. Like that whole 6 month process of me just staying in the books learning, like I was a theory guy because that's the only thing I can attach myself to at that time, guys. I didn't have, like I said, a cousin or uncle that did HVAC that I can ride on weekends, like in the truck with them. Like, gosh, like, no, the only thing I had was the notes I took from school, and I had the books, and I had like maybe the supplies guys helped me. Well, they probably gave me a scrap evac coil or a scrap part, something like that. But like, guys, like, you know, the store, everybody starts from the same place. You know, everybody starts from like a place that they want to level up from, or a place that they don't want to go back to. But like I said, guys, like it's definitely possible out here, but you got to have the right mentality. And like I said, guys, like, you know, you, like I said, it's either you're going to make it happen or you don't. But it's just like the fact that you couldn't, and like, so I've seen this before, guys. Like, it's just like blaming everybody, like I said, for like not putting you on or not helping you. Like, fuck all that, guys. That shit doesn't work past 12 years old. Like, once you get past 12 years old, you should have an idea of how life works, you know, like, unless, like I said, and like I said, this is not a slight towards someone that trust fund babies or whatever the case is. Like, if you had parents or grandparents that already put a lot of work in, that's great. But like I said, if you didn't have that, then like I said, you should already have that knowledge of, you know what, you have to grow up and make something of yourself. And hopefully, you got parents or someone that's going to give you the real rap. Like, look, you just can't stay at home and like not do nothing all day. You have to make some shit work, so I'm grateful that, like I said, HVAC was something that I knew if I put a lot of time into early on the back end, I'll have it, I'll have it my way. I can figure out what the fuck I want to do. But it's just like, no one told me exactly when this shit was going to pay off. No one told me how it was going to pay off. The only thing I had was like, I had something I didn't want to go back to. I wasn't going to fucking stay back to working part-time jobs. Like, for what? Like, fuck that. And like I said, guys, just, I don't compare my life to nobody else. Like I said, how somebody take it is how they take it. But I can tell you, as far as like with the transition I made from, like I said, that 17 to 18-year-old, working, going to trade school, like just trying to figure this shit out, calling like 600 companies, nobody wanted to bring me on. Guys, like, look, man, that desire is fucking real, man. And I know everybody has it, but like everybody has it in a different way, It might be something you want to do or something you don't want to go back to doing, whether it be fucking working 8 jobs or, like I said, like, or depending on people, like, motivation is key, man. But it's just, like I said, guys, no one can pull you up by the bootstrap. You got to have that desire in you. Once again, like, someone can only teach you as much as what you want to know. Like, I think the old saying goes, like, when a student is ready, the teacher will appear, some shit like that. Like, guys, look, man, like, it's definitely possible. But like I said, guys, it starts with like how you think, man. And like recalls, it's all fun to me. Like I said, guys, I mentioned this before. Most of the calls I go on, like, I don't even talk about HVAC. Like, I don't put customer conversations in videos or like anything like that. I keep it relative to equipment and shit like that. But like, guys, most of the time, I just bullshit. I don't really talk, like, because like I said, guys, it's just, I think most customers or all customers already have enough shit that they got to deal with. And once their heater AC breaks down, they kind of go over the top. But like I said, guys, I like simplifying shit. And like I said, guys, that's the thing. Simplicity will never go out of style, guys. Like, keep it simple. Yeah, you might have a few customers that want, like I said, communicating, 80 SEER units. Like, that's great. But like I said, guys, something that's simple that they can rely on. And like I said, they know exactly what to expect. Best case, worst case. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But like I said, guys, that's just the nature of the beast. But let me see what time it is. I got a roll. Let me look at the comments. Hold on. Man, I had some old guys teaching some bad habits. Like what? What do you mean? You talking like with HVAC? Let me turn this truck off. Hold on. I already messed up. Make sure this is locked up. Hold on. Is this locked up? Probably not. And I gotta go to the supply house and get my shit here. Yeah, you guys see I made my own list here when I can. I'm good with heating parts. I already got a bunch of igniters and flank, like a bunch of shit from last fall. Let me look at my list here. I got another one too. Filters, gallo gun carts, a 45.5 cat. I should have gallo gun carts. Hold on, guys. I'm just making sure I'm good here because I'm actually going to start. Well, we're going to start reaching out to maintenance customers next week. I mean, some of them, like I said, it take a week or two for them to get back to you, but most of them, they like booking, like I said, the first week of October, which is actually next week. So we're getting ready to start to do heat maintenances. So I'm trying to make sure I got everything I need just to kind of like get us off the ground for that first week or two of heat maintenance season. And I got a boiler hose that I already put in the other van. What else I need? I got the pony pump already in that. Yeah, guys, shit, we're ready to rock and roll. And I mean, of course, even with the summertime, I mean, with when I want to say like around the shoulder season, like around April, give or take, once the weather starts to break, Usually that's when you want to make sure you at least got a can of refrigerant. In this case, it needs to be 32 454B 410A, and of course R22 alternative. In this case, we use NU22. You want to make sure you at least got enough to get you off the ground. Like, we don't like to overstock vans, because like if you overstock vans, you're gonna end up having a bunch of like redundant shit. So like I mentioned this before too, and I'll probably make another van video as far as like cleaning shit out. But you don't want to overstock things, because like it can easily end up, you can easily end up with like, overstock. You can have a bunch of things you don't need, and I already been through that before. But hopefully if you guys are, I'm talking for like business owners, hopefully if you guys are paying attention to what you're using, you're gonna know what you should have at a minimum, and like I said, what you shouldn't have, unless like I said it's absolutely necessary. So yeah, not wanting to recover refrigeration. What do you mean? You talking about using a recovery machine, or what do you mean? But yeah, I mean, like I said, guys, that's why, I try my best not to talk about perfect scenarios too much, because like I said, guys, I already mentioned this in the video, like sometimes where you start off at is like where you start off at. You can't help your first job or two in the field, and guys, like I said, if I didn't take that maintenance job, that's why you don't hear me talk about it in a negative way, because that company was the only company that was willing to hire me for like 6 months. I don't know, like I said, guys, I don't know if it's politics or what was going on, but like it was nothing personal, but like I couldn't get a job unless it was like an hour and a half away. Like no one was hiring. It was just like a lot going on. So like, whatever job I managed to get, I'm like, the mentality always comes first. The mentality was like, you know what, whatever job I choose, whatever job that, allows me to come on, like I'm just going to just be a sponge and try to learn as much as I can. But like, guys, like, but Frank, based on what you say, like, if you're in a situation in which, like, you feel like you're not learning enough, eventually you just might have to assume that responsibility and just try to learn, also be grateful for where you at, but most importantly, like, you may have to put more time in somewhere else, maybe taking a course, or, at that point, the supply house guys helped me out with seeing, like, parts when I was in school. But, like, once I got past that point, if you feel like it's more things you need to learn to be more self-sufficient with troubleshooting furnaces or troubleshooting boilers, troubleshooting heat pumps, there's probably courses out there now, either online or supply house courses, that's probably going to help you diagnose and troubleshoot things. Like, and like I said, guys, like, I'm an honest guy. If I don't know something, I'm gonna tell you. Like, if you're training, like if I'm training you and like you asking me about a damn heat pump, how to troubleshoot a defrost board, if I don't know, I'm gonna tell you I don't know. It's not hard for me, like I said, to tell the truth. Like, but it's just, let's say if you're with someone that probably tells you, you shouldn't know that, or whatever the case is, maybe you should go to a supply house. Like, supply house has training, I think, in the spring and in the fall. You should, invest in yourself for learning more, because like I said, guys, I don't know, I mean, never say never, but I don't know a company out there that wouldn't like their employees to learn as much as they can, because it's only going to make the company more money. Like, I don't do geothermals. That's something you don't see me do or talk about. But like, let's say one of my guys like wanted to know geothermals and he wanted to take a course to learn geothermals. I mean, that's cool, because like, and like I said, I mean, it's liability too, like only having one person know how to do something in the whole company. But like, if that one employee knows geothermals, maybe if a customer calls in the future and is like, hey, I got a geothermal unit making a noise, I mean, that's added benefit. But like, I mean, like I said, but everybody is different. But like I said, if you're in that situation, if you feel like you're stuck, I mean, you might have a choice to make, hopefully, you're making ends meet, like I said, with the company. But like, if you got like a knowledge issue, definitely go to a supply house. And like I said, there's definitely training courses. There's a lot more training courses now than I had at that time back in the day. But like, just, always investing in yourself and learn more, especially if it's relative to what you're doing. I'm not saying, like I said, go learn how to build a house or nothing like that, but like, just make sure all the time you're investing in HVAC, make sure that, like I said, you cover your core competencies, make sure you have enough knowledge to do your job. But on top of that, just make sure if you kind of like got another area that you want to improve in, shit, hopefully if you can't learn it within the company, shit, just try to go to a supply house and, like I said, try to invest more time in yourself, because it's only going to help you out as long as it's relative. I'm not saying, go from HVAC to, like I said, paving roads and shit like that. Like, nah, just, make sure it's relative to what you're doing. Like I said, for instance, in my case, I knew AC systems before I knew how to troubleshoot furnaces. But like, I knew that heat and AC coincide to each other, where it'd be a coil and condenser in the furnace. So once I knew AC, like I knew refrigerant levels, I knew, like I said, contactors, capacitors, I'm like, all right, now let me go to the order operations. And like most of this shit wasn't taught to me, like I said, on the job. I had to either go back to my school books, or like I said, and like I said, I had no shame in me wanting to ask things. Like, I mean, a lot of guys, maybe not, they're not used to it. Maybe they're used to, like I said, someone holding them by the hand. But like, I'm like, fuck it, man. Like, if someone gets mad at me for asking questions, then fuck them. Like, I don't care shit. It's either I'm gonna learn it or I'm gonna learn it. That's but that's me. That's who I am. Like, but it's just like, not everybody is like that. But like, sometimes you gotta have a not give a shit attitude sometimes to kind of like to get through certain things. But like, and don't take it personal. Once again, like whoever you're with, as far as with the company, if you're not learning anything, like everybody's different. But just be grateful. Like I said, that you have a job in the field, and like I said, hopefully, if you're trying to expand past that point, you might have to step back and say, okay, what are my core competencies? My core competencies. What am I good at? But if I'm trying to get past that level, okay, how does that next level look? Is it at a supply house? Is it at a I mean, I know like this is different training courses now. Like you might not have to go to a supply house, but like it's definitely like a lot more options you got. You just got to look into it, man. That's all. But guys, I got to get the fuck up out of here. I'm not trying to come back out here, so I got to make sure I got everything I need. Hold on. But guys, you can ask your last couple questions while I make sure I got all my keys. Make sure these doors are locked. And I got to roll. What time is it? Yep. But yeah, guys, like I said, this is just another live video, me talking about recalls, having a right mentality, and also make sure you guys are getting your 10,000 steps in. Make sure, like I said, you're in a calorie deficit. Make sure whatever you're eating, make sure you're burning calories as well. Try to stay healthy out there. But I gotta rock out, I gotta roll. I'll also make more episodes along the way. And like I said, guys, once again, we're starting to do heat maintenances next week. So whatever I go to, I'll put them up on the channel so you guys can check it out. But stay tuned for the next one, guys. I'm gonna roll, but I'll see you on the next one. Peace.